Welcome everybody to this week's episode of Cafecito Power Break. Hope you have your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you're drinking, but come for a little break for some conversation. And today is going to be a powerful conversation because I have Dalia here. So I look forward to do a quick little interview with Dalia. And definitely want to remind you guys what's coming up real quick. Tomorrow is our Building Multiple Streams of Income workshop with Yoli Valencia. If you are not registered for that, I recommend that you highly register for that. That's going to be a powerful workshop. And so many other events that are coming up. So make sure that you're subscribed to our calendar and all the things that we got going on because we got a lot of moving pieces. So Dalia, today is a great conversation. And I love this topic because we're going to be talking about Latinas and power, Latinas in tech, Latinas in politics, which is such a topic that I love talking about with you when it comes to Latinas and politics. And because ultimately, that's really what we want is to get more Latinas in these positions because like we always say, change happens at the top and we need to be represented on those tables as much as possible. But first, give us a quick little introduction on you, Dalia.
Thank you. I'm Dalia Quinones-Zayas, and thank you for inviting me here tonight or today, this afternoon. I am I guess by all definitions, a digital strategist and an operational efficiency consultant. That's what I've done my entire life, and sprinkled in between there, I've been able to do mentorship, do some part-time teaching, to really try to open up the doors and help people, especially young Latinas, come into what I consider a very profound and very mobile career, which is a career in tech and business. And along the way, I've had the opportunity to work not only with great corporations, but also work with great nonprofits and different service organizations. So, my background, most recent, I stepped down just a few months ago from being president of the Broward Hispanic Democratic Caucus, in which Broward has one of the largest populations of Democratic Hispanic voters. So I kind of like to dabble in quite a few different things, but as Latinas and women, we should be in all three areas and in full force.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about. I want to talk about each of these separately because they're all big, huge for us to be the concept of Latinas because I see a lot of women and Latinas really going into tech spaces. But what do you feel could be maybe a hindrance still, or how do you see that picture
I
overall?
think the hindrance is I think we need to see more Latinas in significant leadership positions. If you look at the Fortune 500 and first the number of women that sit on the boards, and then the number of Hispanic Latinas that sit on these boards, very few. I think that there are women making great strides right now. And I think it's a calculation of numbers. When I was born a long time ago, the Latino population was probably 5% of the US population. And now, as of the last census, we're about 19%. So when I went into tech, there weren't a lot of role models. I didn't have any Latina women mentors at all. I had some women mentors. And I think the thing was the grouping was 3/4 men, 1/4 women, especially in the tech world. But as the population has grown, in addition, the immigrant community has grown, then we've seen more women. And I think that, I got the opportunity to mentor some young Latinas. And I think what we need to see is in some of the major corporations, continue to push for the promotion and recognition of Latinas as vice presidents, EVPs, COOs, CEOs, and sitting on the board of directors. That's what we need, and we need to help them be successful. So I think groups like yours, like United Latinas, helps establish this networking connection where we can empower each other, we can help support each other, open the doors. Because I'm very much about opening the doors and making sure that ladder behind us stays down so that
Yeah.
other people can climb up, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely, and like you brought up something like even myself, like there's many Latinas that didn't have other Latinas in their career industry, 20 years ago, right? You didn't have mentors, you didn't have people that looked like you that could say, "Hey, this is how to do it," or "This is the way." We had to figure that stuff out on our own. But
Correct.
now, do you still feel now and today that there's not enough women that are doing that in that space,
I
or?
know. I think there are more women doing it, but I think more women. I mean, I think there need to be more women in that space. Because think about it. I mean, if you look at
Mhm.
where the women are predominantly residing, they're residing in HR, in marketing, in sales, all super important. I mean, those are super important verticals of a
Yeah.
corporation. Um, but I think some of the more successful women, I think you're going to see leaps and bounds if you see women really start to populate more of the operational side, more of the
Yeah.
engineers. And women
Yep.
have that talent. They're
Yep.
not always groomed there. So
Yeah.
I like groups like She Codes, for example, where more young Latinas, more young women in general are moving into the engineering space. And I
Yeah.
think that will definitely shore up the credibility, because I think that we naturally, as Latinas, because we are nurturers, right? And we like to bring people together. We usually aren't shy about communicating or engaging different people to come join in. I
Yeah.
think those are tactical skill sets that if you're on the engineering side and then you cross over and you're that hybrid between the business side and the operational side, then you've basically you can crack that window, that ceiling open,
Yeah.
and really shoot even higher. I'd like to see, I'd like to see a major Latina woman be the head of a Microsoft or a Google or a
Yeah.
Salesforce, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that that is, we are the innovators, right? We are the problem solvers. So I think there's so much talent that because culturally for a long time, I mean, I think now it's starting to unravel, right? Where we're understanding the potential that rests inside of us, that's dormant inside of us.
Correct.
We're starting to unravel that because we are the ones that have the ideas. We are the ones that can, we see a problem and we immediately are looking for a solution. So but
Right.
you're right, we aren't bred to that where people feel so empowered to say, I have an idea in a room full of men, or in an industry where typically it's been. But I'm hoping, and I've been out of corporate America for a while. So I'm hoping like in those spaces, and you're in it. I don't, like I'm hoping in those spaces that there is more of the lending a hand or the collaboration or the understanding that women and Latinas, but women as well, are the problem solvers, right? Because
Right.
I do believe that there's a lot of
Yeah, they're
uh,
definitely there. I think that I would, like I said, I think the numbers could be greater. I look at demographics, right? So I look at, how we're divided up across the country. And I just feel like the numbers aren't proportional. The numbers
yeah,
should be higher. And I just think it's because, for whatever reason, and perhaps it might be maybe partly cultural, because, we are entrepreneurial, we do like to solve problems, but at the same time, we're not always nurtured into technical type of careers, and
yeah,
maybe that's changing now with Generation Alpha, Generation Z.
mhm,
But I think that to really make a stride and to really make an impact, I think money talks, right? Money talks across society.
yeah,
And if we can be drivers and we prove ourselves in certain industries and certain categories, and we're creating opportunities through our innovation for others, I think that we'll be able to then have a more profound impact in other parts of society that we as Latinas want to have an impact on. Um, we want to be all things to all people, but we can't. We got to start somewhere, right? We got to really narrow down and fill out that scope. And to me, it's just like, you know what? let's get our hands dirty. Let's do what we need to do to prove ourselves. And that way you gain, you have what you call respectability, and as well as recognition that you know what you're talking about. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely being bolder and
mhm.
taking those leaps. Um, which leads me to the political sphere of all this, because how much does that impact all spaces? Number one, and number two, just kind of even seeing what's going on, like how, especially as the past president of the Broward Caucus, like what did you see, or how do you feel about Latinas in general? Or there any feedback from them even thinking about running, or um,
Yeah,
how does
there's
that?
there's women that want to run. I think I think the problem is twofold. One is money. One is money that, either, some women aren't comfortable asking for money, whereas men are, hey, I'm running for a campaign, even if you're
Yeah,
not qualified, they're, asking, they're getting. I think we've got to, including myself, because I once ran for office and came in second, but it it's important that we understand that, whether we like it or not, money is part of politics, and we're going to have to face that beast. And there's women that, I think, are very qualified to run and can run. Um, but aside from the money aspect, there is that a second tier that is might make it a little bit more difficult, that we have to continue to break down walls, and that is that there is an establishment on both parties, both political spectrums,
yeah,
and people like power. And when you are, for example, in Dade or Broward, and I'm not sure about the numbers in Palm Beach, but when you are the leading minority group but have no visible representation in a huge number of elected positions, there's a problem. And one can say, okay, well, is there gerrymandering? Well, you can say one party, both parties at one time might have gerrymandered, um, to either dilute, meaning you spread out the Hispanics over many districts, so you cut up the districts. Now the voting power is less, or you create maps and you stack voting blocks into heavily, for example, Democratic. They're going to be Democratic anyway, and you just stack them there. Um, and then you don't have an opportunity then really to get more Hispanics in place, because our numbers, are kind of concentrated in one area for one or two seats.
yeah.
So I think there's a lot of work to be done politically. And this is not just the case in Florida. This happens in Texas and
Everywhere.
other
Mhm,
everywhere.
mhm.
So um, I think one of the first things that, from a political perspective, is that we need to come together and understand that we all have the same interests. It is not about, whether I'm from Venezuela or from Cuba or from Mexico. Yes, we are all proud of our different heritages, but at the end of the day, we all have something that we care about, and that's our families. We
Mhm.
want our kids to have good education. We want to have access to good health care. We want great jobs that pay well.
Yeah.
Those cut across ethnic groups.
Yep.
That is something, that we have to recognize. And if we can come together and really focus on that, I think we would be a very strong, strong block. But right now, we let the opposing parties divide us, and that is problematic. So we've got to cut through that messaging,
Yeah.
because it's tough. It really is tough.
Yeah. Gosh, there's a lot to unravel there. And Maxine's comment from before, other women in those leadership roles recruit and uplift other Latinas into those roles, which is what we should be doing. And the same for politics. Like one of those things is the cutting and the division of areas, like you just mentioned, like to just that, who decides that, number one, and number two, that is obvious for the voting system and to really segment that, but that hurts a lot of things. Or do
Right.
you feel that there's a little bit of sometimes it hurts, sometimes it benefits, depending on which side you're on, or overall in general, the redistricting? Um,
I think redistricting in general is good because the
okay.
population does change. It does change, and it changes faster than every 10 years. It's just
Yeah.
that, we don't have to do anything about it as a nation, except for every 10 years. I think that um, what we have to do is when those opportunities for redistricting come up, there's two things. One is there is a recommendation that is put together by, whoever that hiring institution is, organization, but it has to be approved at, at a county level, at a state level. And it's there that, at least in Florida, where we are a little bit hamstrung because we are, if you're a Democrat, you're in the minority when it comes to opposing changes to mapping districts in this last two terms that the legislature proposed, and there were some districts that were hurt because they wanted to ensure that a Republican could win the seat. Now, sometimes it backfires. It kind of backfired, I believe, in Jacksonville about a month ago. But I think that overall, it's a good thing, but the problem is we have to be vocal and we have to be able to make sure that those maps are, it's not just what's good for Hispanics, but it's what's good for the community. What does the community look like? Whether
Yeah.
it's Asian, whether it's Black, whether Hispanic, we've got to have integrity as well. We can't, because we don't want to go in there and go, well, we're Hispanics and we should just, it should all be Hispanic. No, you need to represent the
No. And
community and
that's not what
whatnot.
we want. Ideally, we
Exactly.
want it to make sense. We just don't want it to be with the agenda and intention that is that's going to impact things negatively to support the current systems in place that are not working.
Right,
Right.
exactly. Like, we have
So,
some Hispanic access seats that we thought had potential to be filled by Hispanics, and I'm not sure if that's going to come to fruition with this next election cycle, just simply because of established power players in the community. And it's one thing, we have to demand a seat at the table,
yeah.
because
But
if
we
we
have to go
don't,
get it. No, because like,
yes, or we go get it. We
yeah,
can't just say yes. Well, we can't support, whether you're Democrat or Republican, any candidate
exactly.
just blindly.
Yeah.
We have to demand a seat at the table, because I think that it's just become too much of a merry-go-round where the election cycle comes in. They come in for the Hispanic vote. Yes, we give you the Hispanic vote. Yes, you'll have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
The table comes. Oh, get it, there's a queue now. Sorry, you didn't get there in time. No,
Yeah.
no, that
Yeah.
reservation, that's our name, that you need to hold that seat for us. So
Yeah.
that's what we're gonna, and that's why I said before, we have to come together. We can't let ourselves be divided with the Venezuelan and Colombian and Cuban. We
Yeah.
can't let cultural politics that way divide us, because if they
Yeah.
do, then we'll never have a seat at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, I mean, I think the idea of just a two-party system as is already divisive. Like, we don't some people don't fit in either of those blocks, and if you're
Right.
independent, you're a lone ranger and you're very minor, you keep
A lot of
shrinking your
people have shifted to independent. The problem is, and this is where, and you can get into like an hour discussion on this, is that the structural system is set up for two parties. It is set up that way.
yeah,
And for a third party candidate to come in, it's close to nearly impossible unless you have almost an entire wing, whether it be the Democrats or the Republicans, shift over to
yeah,
independent.
yeah,
It's just the way the system was structured. I think, there is a small group of people out there trying to change the Constitution. I believe you need 37 states to vote on that change. I think
yeah.
the last count I
Hopefully in our
heard was, I
lifetime,
think they're up to
but
30 or 29 states. It's
yeah,
almost an impossible number to achieve, to
yeah,
allow for, more open uh
yeah.
other party affiliations. Yeah.
So how do we get more Latinas in office? And do you feel that the current elected Hispanics, male or female, or whatever gender, are bringing others up, or because that is such a when it comes to politics, it's very hard to tie your name to, right? I think that they're
Yeah,
very
I think
careful.
that we've got to seek them out. So these different caucuses or chapters need to be seeking out these, because we've got young, smart. They're in private sector. You've got a lot of talented
Yeah,
people in South Florida. You
yeah,
don't have to be a political person, volunteer or anything to run for office. You can be a business person, a nonprofit person. I think that we've got talented individuals. We have to not only encourage them to run, but we have to show them that we're going to be there
yep,
to help them do the fundraising, to helping knocking on the doors, because that's what it takes. It takes knocking on the doors. It takes messaging. It takes fundraising, and that a person can't do it by themselves. So
yeah,
if you don't have, and again, there isn't a power establishment, and if they're not bringing you in, which they're not, they're, I think that we have to then come together, coalesce, and say, hey, and we tried that in the last election, and we got a couple Hispanics elected. One of them, unfortunately, due to a legal maneuvering, wasn't allowed to take their seat on the education board. But I think that we have to continue to do what we did in the last election cycle. And that's what we did. We looked at people that were supportive of the Hispanic community, and people that went out of their way to do something, whether it was service, volunteering, whether it was in their political role, in their private sector role. And we highlighted them. We supported them. And I would hope that, this next election cycle that comes up, that the caucus and the team that continues forward, at least in Broward County, will continue to do that. We'll continue to, pull in support and bring in resources, people on the ground, door knockers, postcard writers, telephone. People got to pick up the phone. I picked up the phone a lot in the last election cycle, to really support these individuals. But we
yeah,
can't be afraid to ask. We just have to ask them. I think
yeah.
you'd be great to run. Sandra, I think you'd be an amazing candidate.
Yeah, but you know what? And I think, like, somebody had said that to me once, like, because I was like, we need to get more Latinas elected. We need to get more Latinas in office because change happens there. But at the same time, I definitely don't. There's a quote that people that I've heard. It says, you go into office to do good, and then you find out you're doing good, and
Yeah.
so you forget why the people and the things that that got
Right.
you
I
into the
mean, you have to
office.
have thick skin. You can't take
You
things
have to have thick
personally.
skin.
I
Yep, yep,
mean,
yep.
and if you don't, and if you don't have thick skin, then that's okay. Cause then, people like me will help you get that thick skin
Yeah,
to let some things go,
yeah,
engage, don't engage, it's just like business. There's times where you need to nip it at the bud. And other times it's like, okay, let it flower, let it pester over there, because
yeah,
only you are looking bad in that corner.
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's like I always think, like, how do we get that? How can we just get a bunch of women, like, really in? Maxine wrote, "I vote for Sandra." I'm not running. Not yet. Anyway, not any. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I don't know. That's a whole different conversation. But I but I know that we can do all of the changes that we want. We can implement a lot of things on local levels, but if we are not fully represented in those levels and are willing to be that no holds barred, I'm here to complete an agenda, we can do so much and still be spinning our wheels because
Right, right.
there's so many
Well,
things
you know
against us.
what? It is tough. You have to persevere. You have to have tenacity. And so one of the things that I think that we can do to help support, especially, we need young people in
Yeah,
this. We need young people.
definitely.
One, because, the decisions that are being made today is affecting the children of the young people today. So
Yes.
we really need, there are young high schoolers, young college people that are very proactive. They volunteer. If they're not in the participating in democratic kind of things, or they're participating in service organizations, in nonprofits, and that is the kind of energy that we need to tap into, that we need to show them, wow, look at how you created this solution. We had a situation, whether it was a problem in the oceans, or for kids, or for food banks,
Hmm.
and show them that they are capable. Part of it's a confidence. Do I
Yeah.
have the confidence to run? And a lot of people think I can't do it, and I'm like, yeah, you can do it. When I was encouraged to run, uh I was, and I'm fortunate in my situation, was that we had two Democrats running. That people still talk about that. Had we not had a second Democrat, I could have gotten the seat. But regardless of that, is that everyone is entitled to run. And when you show people that they actually do have the potential, that they do have the guts and what it takes to do it, that the skill sets that they're doing in their everyday work apply over on the political spectrum, I think that helps create that confidence and that self-esteem. And you make little gains, and you build on that confidence level to get them to run.
Absolutely, Maxine, bro. If you have to be smart and think how to get in the mix and help make the change in a way that they don't even know it's happening. That
Absolutely.
is,
That's great. Words of
yeah,
wisdom there, man.
that needs to be in a card. It's true, and do it and make the change in a way that they don't even know it's happening.
Right.
And that's so key there. Um,
Absolutely.
Maybe we can
Absolutely.
get some of the Latinas in tech that are, they're
Absolutely.
right.
I
It
think
kind of
we can
goes
get,
together.
so that we've got Latinas in tech that I think that we could tap into. I think there are also Latinas in service organizations
Hmm.
that we could tap into. I'm not
Yeah.
saying any names to keep it clean, but we've got people that run Big Brother, Big Sister. We've got
Hmm.
other Latinas that are in nonprofits. Like
Yeah.
I
Or run
sat
local community chapters, like people that are
exactly.
watching here.
So I sat on the board of kids in distress on the auxiliary, and so that is just one of a gazillion
Yeah.
nonprofits that do really good work in the community. We've got Latinas involved in these organizations, and I think we need to start tapping into them. And I recommend always, especially if you're a young woman, whether you're going into tech or not, this does not have to be you don't need a tech background, but everyone should give back to their community. It's not only gratification, internal gratification. Our skill sets are needed
Yeah.
in these nonprofit organizations. You need people that know how to do budgets, how to do grants, how to do fundraising, how to
Yeah.
get backpacks, and for people that can't afford to buy it their own, how do we do food drives? These are all tactical skills that we have, and that we can give back to the community. And when you don't give back to the community, I think that is problematic. And I think we need to grow that part of our base. And I think at least in our
Yeah.
public schools, I think they do a good job at requiring so many hours to get done. But I want, a lot of kids look at it as, I got to get my hours in, as opposed to really doing it for the right reason. And that's
Yeah.
where we have to make a shift. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a mindset. That's
And
that's a
it's
mindset, because it shouldn't be, what can I get out of it? Even though you get, like, your self-esteem, like, look at what I did. But
yeah.
what do the people, the constituents in that nonprofit, what did they get?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, Maxine. That's why I mentioned that, because I know you are part of some of your local chapters. So definitely joining, local Hispanic chapters or Latin chapters, chambers of commerce, being involved and embedded in the community. Because even for all culture, things that stop is not having that immediate family support. Or, I mean, maybe as you age, you do, but I mean, even the younger, or it was in the past more so, where you didn't have, because it was so like, oh, that's for other people. Latinos don't go try to do those things, right?
Right.
Like the play it safe. category. But
But
I
I
think,
think we're educating more. So for
yeah,
example, I'm part of Rotary, and we give out a lot of scholarships, and a lot of scholarships have gone out to Hispanic students. I mean, just
yeah,
top, like, just performers, people that are coming from, a struggling background, or
yeah,
new immigrants. And I see these those are potential um impactors, influencers, whether they go into
yeah,
politics or they're the next, Elon Musk
yeah,
of a corporation.
yeah,
And that's why I say let's get involved in voluntary kind of organizations, whether it's the Kiwanis Club or Rotary, whoever it is. Because I think that's where you're going to see a lot of raw talent and a lot of opportunity to mentor, and
yeah,
to really encourage people, to that they can do more than
yeah.
what they think they can.
For sure, for sure. All right, our time has come for our cafecito. I mean, we can go on this conversation because I have a million other things I want to really. We need a whole hour on Latinas in politics, and maybe we like can. I don't know. We need to work on something to really
Yeah, maybe let's create
support.
a panel. I think that would be great. We could do
We
some.
should. We should. We should do that.
Well, thank
Um,
you for having me. I really
yes,
appreciate it, Sandra.
definitely. Do you want to share any last words? Any closing words?
I think that, what? I think from a Latina, I think that, keep your eyes open, look at all opportunities that come your way, and just, remember that that you're a beautiful person, and that, you can do it. Don't let any negative little voices or people around you tell you that you can't do something, that you absolutely can. And, let's look at uplifting each other.
Amen. Amen. Drink your tea to that for sure. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. This will be available on our other channels and you can watch the repeat. And again, before we close out, don't forget to register for our event tomorrow if you're not already registered for with Yoli Valencia. And we will see you guys next time.
Thank
Take
you,
care, guys.
everyone. Bye.
Bye bye. Be well.